If you're hosting this year, don't panic. Today I'm putting all of my favorite holiday recipes into one long compilation video. We're talking everything from breakfast casseroles, rolls, appetizers, slow cooker mains, and more. So sit back, get cozy, relax. Your holiday menu starts right now. Hey guys, today we are making 2 overnight breakfast casseroles, one sweet and one savory. Perfect for the holidays or any weekend brunch or get together. It's so nice that you can make it the day before, and then when you have company or family, you can just pop it in the oven in the morning and be able to visit and relax. We love making these for Christmas Eve morning, Christmas morning, New Year's. So we will be making my cheesy sausage egg bake and my French toast casserole. So let's go get started. So I have my casserole dish here greased, and to it I am adding 20 ounces of hash browns. I like to partially cook them in my air fryer or in the oven just so that you get some of that golden color, but you can absolutely just add them in thawed and raw. As well as 1 pound of ground sausage, cooked and drained. You could also add bacon or swap it with bacon. A half a red bell pepper diced, a half of green bell pepper diced, and a 1/4 cup of diced onion. And then we are going to add on 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese. And then in a separate bowl, I'm combining 8 large eggs with 1 can of evaporated milk, a half a teaspoon of salt, and a half a teaspoon of pepper, as well as a half a teaspoon of garlic powder. And we just want to whisk that all together and pour it on top. And then we are going to add another 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese to the top of that. So now at this point you can just pop it into the refrigerator, and then the next morning you would preheat the oven to 350 degrees and bake for about 55 to 65 minutes or until the eggs are set in the center. And then you can cut it into squares, scoop it out, whatever you'd like. And as I said, you can really change this recipe up. You could make it vegetarian and just do mushrooms. You could do turkey sausage, whatever you and your family and friends enjoy. I just love how light and fluffy the eggs are, and it's so full of flavor. The peppers and onions get cooked perfectly, and it feels like you spent hours on this. But you got to just relax all morning. So now let's move on to my French toast casserole. So in a large bowl here, I'm combining 8 eggs with 2 cups of milk, a 1/4 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of melted butter, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and a half a teaspoon of cinnamon. And you just want to give that a good mix. And then in my casserole dish here, I have 1 large loaf of Italian bread that I just cubed up. You could use any kind of soft, large loaf of bread here. And then we're just going to pour that egg mixture all over the top. And now, depending on how much bread you have, you may not need all of this batter mix, but it will not go to waste. You can put it in the refrigerator and use it to make regular French toast. You can also freeze the mixture, or you could make a second smaller casserole dish with some more bread, which is what I usually like to do. But again, it depends. There have been times that I've gotten really large loaves of bread and it was the perfect mix. So now we are going to make a cinnamon sugar sauce to drizzle all over the top. So I'm combining a 1/4 cup of butter melted with 3 tablespoons of brown sugar and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and we just want to pour that all over the top. And then this is the point where we would refrigerate it overnight, or you could bake it immediately. So when we're ready for baking, we just want to preheat the oven to 350 degrees and bake for about 30 minutes covered in aluminum foil. And then you want to remove the foil and bake it for an additional 15 to 20 minutes or until the top is nice and golden brown and the internal temperature should reach about 165. Now, I know it may be tempting to dig into right away, but try to let this cool in the pan for about 10 minutes because it will be piping hot. This French toast casserole is one of our favorites. We've been making it for years and years, and now it's become my son's favorite. He had leftovers of this for like 2 days. And he's still asking for more, so I guess I'm just gonna have to make it again. I really hope you guys give these a try. It's a great way to make the holidays a little less stressful. and give you time to enjoy with your loved ones instead of standing around the kitchen. If you give either of these a try, please be sure to leave me a comment and let me know what you think. And thank you so much for watching until the end, and we will see you in the next one. Bye. Hey everyone, today we are making a basic dinner roll dough and transforming it into 3 different kinds of rolls. They are great to have on hand all year, but especially during the holidays. They freeze beautifully, so you can always have fresh rolls on hand. We will be making classic dinner rolls with sea salt, cheesy crescent rolls, and herb pull-apart rolls. We've got a lot to cover, so let's go get started. Okay, so let's start out with our basic dinner roll dough. So I have a half a cup of milk and a half a cup of water heated to about 110 degrees. You really want to use a thermometer here because if it's too hot, it will kill the yeast. If it's too cold, it won't activate the yeast. So I'm adding that to the bowl of my stand mixer along with a packet of active dry yeast, 3 tablespoons of sugar, and 1 cup of flour. And we just want to mix that together. It's absolutely fine if there are still lumps. We just want to let that rest for about 10 to 15 minutes or until lots of bubbles form on the surface. Okay, so once the yeast has had some time to sit and bloom, we are going to add in 6 tablespoons of butter that is softened to room temperature, and I just cut it up into cubes to make it easier to incorporate, as well as 1 teaspoon of salt and 2 more cups of flour. And then we just want to use the dough hook on the mixer here and mix it on medium speed for about 2 to 3 minutes or until it's nice and smooth and everything's incorporated. Now I have 2 eggs that I lightly whisked, and I'm going to add those into the dough. And we're just going to, again, mix this and scrape the bottom of the bowl as needed. And then we're going to add in an additional 1 1/4 cups of flour and whatever mix-ins we may be using in the remaining recipe. This one, for the basic roll, we don't need to mix anything in. So again, we just want to mix this for about 3 to 4 minutes or until the dough forms a loose ball, as you can see here. And then I'm going to place the dough in a greased bowl, and you just want to roll it around the bowl so that all of the dough gets coated in that oil. And see, I'm showing you here, it will be soft and slightly sticky, but it shouldn't leave any residue on your fingers. If it does, you need a little bit more flour. So then we are going to cover that for about 2 hours or until it is doubled in size. And now we will move on to our basic sea salt rolls. So I have my dough and I'm dividing that in half, and then you just want to pat each one out into a rectangle that's about 1/4 inch thick. And then I'm going to cut each of these into 12 rectangles, and then we're just going to roll them into balls. Then I'm going to place those on a parchment-lined baking sheet. And we are going to again cover them in plastic wrap and let them rise for an additional 30 to 45 minutes or until they're nice and puffy. And then we want to brush some more melted butter on top, about 2 tablespoons worth. And then I'm just taking kitchen shears and cutting a little X into the top of each one and sprinkling them with flaky sea salt. So then I have my oven preheated to 375 degrees, and we are going to bake these for about 25 minutes, rotating the sheet pans halfway through. And then we just want to brush them with another 2 tablespoons of melted butter. And then we want to let them cool on a wire rack. And as you can see, they are so light and flaky. They are great on their own, but cut them open with a little bit more butter, and they really go beautifully with whatever dinner you're serving. So now we're going to move on to our cheesy crescents. So we're going to make the basic dough as we did before, but when we're adding in that final 1 1/4 cup of flour, we are also going to add in 1/3 a cup of grated Parmesan cheese, and then just mix as we did before, let the dough rise. And then I'm going to again divide the dough in half and roll it out into a round that's about 12 inches and about 1/4 inch thick. And we just want to brush the whole thing with a lightly beaten egg. And then we are going to sprinkle 1 cup of shredded Gruyere onto the round, and you just want to lightly press it into that egg so that they stick. And then we are going to cut it into 12 triangles. And starting from the longer end, we are going to roll these up into crescents. And then I'm going to place them on a parchment-lined baking sheet. And again, cover in plastic wrap and let stand for 30 to 45 minutes or until they're nice and puffy. And then we are going to use the rest of the egg that we had before and brush that on top of each of the crescent rolls and then sprinkle them with poppy seeds. You could also use sesame seeds, everything bagel seasoning. You can really get creative with this. And then again, we just want to bake it at 375 degrees for about 25 minutes, switching the sheet pans in between, and then putting them on a wire rack to cool. Now these rolls I would eat on their own. They're so good, but again, they pair really beautifully with a lot of things, especially like a nice roast beef. Super light, flaky, and cheesy. So now let's move on to our herb pull-apart rolls. So again, we are going to make our basic dinner roll dough, but when we're adding in that last little bit of flour, we are also going to add in about 4 tablespoons of fresh herbs here. I did parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, just like the song. Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. And then once our dough has risen, we are going to again divide it in half and roll it out into about a 10-inch square. And then I'm going to cut each of those squares into 8 equal strips. And then I have some melted butter, and I am going to brush all of the strips with melted butter and stack up 4 strips and kind of press them together. And then we want to cut that into 6 rolls. And then we just want to place them into a muffin tin, cut side up, and continue on with the rest of our strips. Now again, we want to cover these and let them rise again for another 30 to 45 minutes. And then we are going to brush the rolls with some melted butter and bake them at 375 degrees for 25 minutes, rotating halfway through. And then once they're done and come out of the oven, you want to brush them with a little bit more butter, because why not? The butter at the end is what really makes these rolls nice and soft, because it just absorbs right into the hot bread. I love how fun these are, that you can pull them apart in little layers and add some more butter or honey. I really hope you enjoyed coming along with me and making 3 types of dinner rolls out of one dough. Each of these recipes makes 24 rolls, so it's great when you're having a big party, or even if you're just a smaller family like we are. I like to make them and keep them in a Ziploc in the freezer, and you just pull them out, let them come to room temperature, and then you can pop them in the oven for just a few minutes to get them nice and warm again. And it just really elevates any dinner, whether it's the holidays or not, and makes it a little bit more special. As always, thank you so much for watching to the end, and we will see you in the next one. Bye. Hey guys, today we are making 8 of my favorite holiday appetizers. My family has a tradition where the weekend after Thanksgiving we have Duver Day, my grandma's term, and all make appetizers, decorate the tree, and watch Christmas Vacation. We've created some good recipes over the years, and with it being the season for lots of parties and get-togethers, I wanted to share some with you. We will be making caramelized onion and bacon dip, classic Chex Mix, savory spiced pecans, cranberry brie bites, Bisquick sausage balls, pumpkin cheese balls, sweet and salty bacon bark, and slow cooker spinach and artichoke dip. We've got a lot to cover, so let's go get started. Okay, so let's start out with our caramelized onion bacon dip. So what I'm doing here is just taking 2 large onions and thinly slicing them into little half moons here. And then in my skillet over medium heat, I am cooking 4 to 5 slices of bacon. Usually I prefer cooking my bacon in the oven, but because we want the bacon grease in the pan to cook the onions in, we're doing it this way today. So once that is nice and golden brown, we are going to remove the bacon from the pan, crumble it, and set it aside. And then we are going to add our onions directly into the pan and turn it down to medium-low. And then I'm sprinkling on a half a teaspoon of sugar and a quarter teaspoon of salt. And we just want to give that a good stir. And slowly cooking it, stirring occasionally for about 20 minutes or until they are nice and golden and caramelized. And then we want to add in about a teaspoon of fresh thyme. And then I just mix the chopped up bacon right back into the pan and set that aside. So in a large bowl, I am combining a half a cup of sour cream and a half a cup of mayo, as well as a pinch of freshly ground black pepper. And then we are going to stir in our onion and bacon mix, as well as 1.5 cups of shredded Gruyere cheese. And then I have my greased casserole dish here, and I'm just going to pour that mixture in, and we are going to bake that at 400 degrees for about 20 minutes or until it is golden brown and bubbly. This dip is seriously addicting. The combination of the sweet caramelized onions with the nutty Gruyere cheese and crumbly smoky bacon. It is almost impossible to only eat one scoop. I love serving it with toasted pieces of bread, veggies, or tortilla chips are another great option. So now let's move on to my family's classic Chex Mix recipe. My parents have been making this since the early 80s, and I wouldn't change a thing about this recipe. So I have 1 stick of butter melted here. My parents actually melt it right in the oven in the pan at 250 degrees. You can also melt it in the microwave. But once it's melted, we are going to stir in 1.5 teaspoons of garlic powder, 1.5 teaspoons of seasoned salt, 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, and 1 teaspoon of onion powder. Now, does anybody know the secret to make onion powder not clump? I cannot figure out why it's always clumped together. But anyway, so we're going to give that a good stir, and then we are adding in 5 cups of Chex cereal. We like a mix of corn and rice, 3 cups of Cheerios, 1 cup of peanuts, and 1 cup of pretzels. I wasn't filming, so here I'm showing you what I did. I thought I pushed record, but apparently not. So we're going to give that a good stir to coat everything. And then our oven is preheated to 250 degrees. We want to cook this for 1 hour, stirring every 15 minutes. Now, I know this is a simple recipe, but as I said before, my mom kind of altered the ingredients back in the day, and we've been making it the same way ever since. Anytime my parents made this, we would all be standing around the kitchen just eating it right out of the hot pan. It just brings back those holiday comfort memories for me. Okay, so let's move on to our savory spiced pecans. In a bowl here, I have 1/3 cup of butter melted, and to that I am adding in 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce, 1¼ teaspoons of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/2 teaspoon of yellow mustard, 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, and 1/2 teaspoon of thyme. And we just want to give that a good stir. And then we are going to toss in 4 cups of pecan halves. And I have a parchment-lined sheet pan, and we are just going to dump those on there and spread them out evenly. And I have my oven preheated to 400 degrees, and we are just going to bake them for about 20 minutes, stirring occasionally or until they are fragrant. I love these. I feel like mixed nuts, you always kind of see a sweet and savory kind of blend, but these are just really great and they're amazing with a nice cocktail. Okay, so now moving on to my cranberry brie bites. Me and my sister have been making these for years and years. We're both big fans of brie. Now, normally I would use a mini muffin tin to make these, to make 24 small ones. I never got around to replacing my mini muffin pan that was all rusted, so we're using the regular one today. But this is also great if you are serving a dinner and you want to give each person an individual cup. It's a nice size. But what I'm doing here is I have 2 sheets of puff pastry thawed, and we are going to cut that into either 12 or 24 squares, depending on what pan you're using. And then I have an 8-ounce wheel of brie that I just removed the rind from, and I cut it into the equal amount of cubes. And then I have about 1/2 cup of cranberry sauce, and we're just going to spoon that into the cups as well. And my oven is preheated at 400 degrees, and we are going to bake these for about 18 to 20 minutes or until they're nice and golden brown, and sprinkle them with some fresh thyme while they are still warm. Again, this is a recipe we've been making for Duvernay for probably 10 or 12 years now, and every time I make them, it just brings me back to being at my parents' house decorating the tree. I just love the tart cranberry with that melty, funky brie and the super crispy, flaky puff pastry. So now moving on to my Bisquick sausage balls. I'm sure you've seen these around. It's a classic recipe, but I had to include them because it's something we make every single holiday season. So in a large bowl here, I have 2 cups of Bisquick baking mix, and to that I am adding 1 pound of cheddar cheese. And then I am also going to add in 1 pound of ground sausage. You could use mild or spicy. And then we just want to give this a good mix. And then we just want to roll them into 1-inch balls and place them on a parchment-lined baking sheet and bake for about 20 to 25 minutes or until they are nice and golden brown and cooked through. There's just something about these. It's like having little biscuit balls that are just filled with sausage and cheese. It's like the perfect finger food for a party. Next up, we have my pumpkin cheese balls. So in a bowl here, I have 8 ounces of softened cream cheese. And to that, I am adding 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese, a 1/4 cup of red bell peppers that I finely patted dry and diced, and 3 green onions diced, as well as some salt and pepper. And we're just going to give that a good stir, and we want to refrigerate this for about an hour just to firm everything up and let those flavors melt. Now in a bowl here I have 1 cup of crushed nacho cheese chips, and we are going to take the mixture and roll 1-inch balls and roll that into the crushed chips and place them on a plate. And then I'm going to use the side of a wooden skewer here to make little indents in the sides to make it look like a pumpkin. And then you can use pretzel sticks. I actually like using the regular pretzels and breaking them so you get kind of that curved stem, but either will work. And you want to stick that in the top with a piece of parsley. And then you have the cutest little pumpkins, and it's great. They're just little personal cheese balls that people can pick and put on their plate with some crackers instead of trying to take a big hunk out of the large cheese ball and making a big mess. And they are festive and perfect for Thanksgiving time. So now moving on to my slow cooker spinach and artichoke dip here. I have a 10-ounce bag of baby spinach that I roughly chopped. And to that I am adding a 13.5 ounce can of artichokes that I drained and chopped. Then I am adding in a 1/2 cup of onion finely diced, 4 garlic cloves minced, in my handy dandy mincer here. Keeps the garlic smell off your hands. I'll link it down below. And 8 ounces of cream cheese cubed. And then I'm also adding in 1 cup of sour cream, 1.5 cups of shredded mozzarella cheese, a 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese, and some fresh ground black pepper. And then we just want to give that a stir and cook this on low for 2 hours or on high for 1 hour. And then you just want to check it and give it a stir and see if everything is nice and melted. And if it is, then you can turn it to warm until you're ready to serve. I love serving this dip with tortilla chips. That's my favorite, but you could also use little toasts, crackers, vegetables. And I love that it keeps nice and warm in your slow cooker. It's something that you can bring to a party, already made, but still nice and warm. And it is always a huge hit at any party we serve it at. And last but certainly not least is my oh so famous sweet and salty bacon bark. This is highly requested. Anywhere I go to a party, people always want me to bring this. It's just that perfect little crunchy, sweet and salty snack. So I have an 8-ounce roll of crescent dough here that I put on a parchment-lined sheet pan, and you just want to try and press it out, pinching the seams together just to get it as thin as possible, and poke a bunch of holes in it and bake it at 375 degrees for about 5 to 8 minutes just to get it a little bit golden brown. And then I have maple syrup, brown sugar, and bacon. And we're going to put half of the maple syrup down, half of the brown sugar, all of the crumbled bacon, I believe it was 10 slices cooked and crumbled, and then the remaining maple syrup and brown sugar. And then you want to bake this at 375 degrees for about 20 minutes. And then you want to let it cool and then cut it and break it into pieces. Now my secret is, while it's still warm, I like to slide it off the parchment paper, cut it up, and then put it back on the sheet pan and bake it for an additional like 5 to 8 minutes, and then all of the edges get really crispy crunchy. If you want it to be more of like a bread, then you can skip that step, but I like them to be like really crispy crackers. And there you have it, 8 of my easy holiday appetizers. I really hope you enjoyed coming along with me and making them. As I said, these are all some of my family favorites, and I do have part 2 coming up next month, so stay tuned for that if you enjoyed this. And if you give any of these a try or just want to say hi, please be sure to leave me a comment. I love hearing from you guys. And as always, thank you so much for watching until the end, and we will see you in the next one. Bye! Appetizers perfect for any party or get-together. We will be making my caprese Christmas wreath, Italian sausage bread, my grandma's cheesy bacon breadsticks, jam and goat cheese pinwheels, French onion soup cups, slow cooker holiday jelly meatballs, baked clam dip, and my cheesy pull-apart garlic knot Christmas tree. We have a lot to cover, so let's go get started. So let's start out with my caprese Christmas wreath. You can use a store-bought balsamic glaze, but I'm showing you how to make it here. I have 1.5 cups of balsamic vinegar, and to that I am adding 3 tablespoons of brown sugar, and we just want to whisk that together and bring it to a boil, and then we just want to reduce that to a simmer and cook that by half, and then we just want to set that aside to cool. In a large bowl here, I have 1 pint of cherry tomatoes, as well as 10 to 12 ounces of mini mozzarella balls. We are going to add about 2 tablespoons of nice olive oil, 3 to 4 tablespoons of Italian herbs. I like to use parsley, oregano, and basil, as well as 2 to 3 cloves of garlic minced, and some fresh basil, and we just want to give that a nice mix. And let that marinate for at least 30 minutes before serving. And then what I'm going to do here is I have my cute little Christmas ramekin here that I'm going to put the glaze in. And then once that's cooled and we're ready to serve, I am just going to put that in the center of a plate and put my caprese salad all around, and then use some larger basil leaves all around the edge to make it look like a pretty wreath. I love serving this at parties because it is a fresher option to some of the more heavy appetizers, and it's also very festive and pretty. And speaking of heavy and delicious, let's move on to my Italian sausage bread. So in my skillet here, I melted 1/4 cup of butter, and to that I added 1 onion that was finely diced. And we just want to cook that down until softened and season with salt and pepper, as well as about a teaspoon of parsley and 1/2 teaspoon of oregano. And once they are softened, I am going to add in 2 cloves of minced garlic and just cook that for an additional minute. And then I'm going to add in 1 pound of ground sweet Italian sausage. You could also use hot Italian sausage if you prefer. And we just want to cook that and crumble it, stirring until golden brown. And once that is all nice and cooked, we just want to set that aside. Now, if it's really greasy, you can absolutely drain it. So I have 2 large pizza doughs here that I just stretched out into 12-inch rounds. And I'm just dividing the sausage mixture between both. And then I have 4 cups of shredded mozzarella cheese, so about 2 cups on each of these, as well as 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese that I'm just going to sprinkle on top. And then I have an egg that I whisked that I am going to brush all along the edges, and then we just want to roll this up like a cinnamon roll and then pinch the seam together, and then we're going to tuck the sides down underneath, and there we have our little bread. So once both are rolled up tightly, I'm going to place them on a parchment-lined baking sheet and brush with the remaining egg wash. And then I like to sprinkle some more Italian seasoning and garlic powder on top of this. So a little bit of parsley, oregano, basil, and garlic powder. And then I have my oven preheated to 375 degrees. And we just want to bake that until golden brown, about 25 to 30 minutes. And then we want to let that rest for at least 10 minutes before slicing. And serve with nice warm marinara sauce. This appetizer was actually introduced to me by my amazing in-laws who are Italian. This is a Christmas Eve staple in their house, and it is just so incredible. And now moving on to my Grandma Frog's cheesy bacon breadsticks. Long story short, she collected frogs, so my cousin started calling her Grandma Frog, and the name stuck. So I have 12 slices of bacon cut in half, and what I like to do is put them on a baking sheet and par bake them at 350 degrees for about 10 minutes. I believe she just put it on raw, but I like really, really crispy bacon, so that's my one little tweak. But what we want to do once that's par cooked is wrap them around sesame breadsticks and then roll them in a half a cup of Parmesan cheese with a little bit of black pepper. And then we just want to bake that for about 20 minutes at 350 degrees until they are nice and golden brown and super crispy. And then I have another half a cup of Parmesan cheese that we are then going to dredge these in while they are still piping hot. And it's as simple as that, but I promise you, these are absolutely incredible. I am like drooling watching this right now. I'm gonna make them again this weekend. It's something that my grandma has made every single Christmas that I can remember, probably way before I was even born. And I remember her walking into my parents' house with that tray and just filling the whole house with the smell of these breadsticks. Oh my gosh. It just reminds me of all my favorite Christmas memories. So now let's move on to my jam and goat cheese pinwheels. Originally I used fig jam with this, but they're great with raspberry jam or a black currant jam, but I like to use the red for the Christmassy feels. So I have one puff pastry sheet thawed, and to that I'm adding a half a cup of whatever jam or preserves you're using, 4 ounces of goat cheese crumbled, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, and a little bit of fresh thyme, a couple sprigs. And then we just want to roll that up, wrap it in parchment or plastic wrap, and freeze for at least 30 minutes. We want this to get firmer so it's easier to slice. So you need a really sharp knife, and we're just going to cut these into 1/2-inch pinwheels. And you may want to wipe the knife off in between cuts. So then I have my oven preheated to 400 degrees, and we are going to place these on a parchment-lined baking sheet and brush with some egg wash and bake for about 15 to 20 minutes until nice and golden brown and bubbly. I like to top mine with a little bit of extra fresh thyme. These are the perfect combination of sweet and savory and tangy. And again, they're really festive, but they're also perfect as a little handheld appetizer if everyone's walking around, catching up and mingling. So now let's move on to my French onion soup cups. So I have my large skillet over medium heat here, and I have 1 tablespoon of olive oil and 1 tablespoon of butter that I just combined and heated up. And to that I have 2 large onions that I thinly sliced into half moons. And I'm going to sprinkle that with a 1/2 teaspoon of sugar and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And we just want to give that a good mix. And we are going to caramelize them by turning the heat down to medium-low and cooking, stirring occasionally for about 25 minutes. Then I'm just going to add a little bit of black pepper and fresh thyme, along with a 1/2 cup of beef broth. And we just want to simmer that until it's mostly reduced. And then I'm going to stir in 3 tablespoons of heavy cream. And we just want to set that aside. Then I have 2 sheets of puff pastry thawed, and I'm going to cut each sheet into 6 rectangles. And I have my muffin tin greased, and I'm just going to put these into each of the muffin cups. Now you can leave these just as is, but I like to fold them over to make a little bit of a crust. So then we're just going to divide the onion mixture between the 12 cups. And then I have 1 cup of Gruyere cheese shredded that I'm just going to put on the tops. And then my oven is preheated to 375 degrees, and we just want to bake them for about 20 to 25 minutes or until they are nice and golden brown and melty. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you probably noticed the theme of French onion soup everything. It's one of my favorites, but it's just such a great thing for the holidays. It seems so decadent and it's just so savory and beautiful. And again, a perfect little handheld bite for a party or for an appetizer at a sit-down meal. So now let's move on to my slow cooker holiday jelly meatballs. These are definitely a classic 60s, 70s appetizer. If you need something super quick and easy, this is for you. So in my slow cooker here, I'm combining 24 ounces of chili sauce with 1.5 cups of grape jelly and 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. I do believe I halved the recipe for this, so it probably doesn't seem like that much, but I'm reading the recipe from my book that I wrote out. So then I'm going to add 3 pounds of frozen meatballs and just give that a good stir. And we want to cook that on low for 8 hours or on high for 4 hours. This is such a great thing to have at a party or even bring to a party. It stays nice and hot in the slow cooker. You can just keep it on warm. I like to keep some long toothpicks on the side for serving, as well as some little dinner rolls because they make great little mini sliders. So now moving on to the baked clam dip, I have 1 tablespoon of olive oil in my skillet here, and I'm adding 1/2 cup of finely diced onion, and we just want to cook that until they are nice and softened. And then right to this pan, I am adding 2 cans of chopped clams with the juice. And then we just want to turn the heat off and stir in 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese, 1/2 teaspoon of oregano, 1/2 teaspoon of parsley, 1/2 teaspoon of thyme, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/4 teaspoon of hot sauce, and some salt and pepper to taste, about 1/4 teaspoon of each. And then I'm also going to stir in 1 cup of panko breadcrumbs and 1 cup of plain breadcrumbs. You may need more or less depending, but you want this to be a really, really thick paste. So then I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees and my casserole dish greased. And we just want to put this mixture in the casserole dish and bake at 350 for 35 to 40 minutes or until nice and golden. This is literally the inside of a baked clam. I love baked clams. And this is another appetizer that I've always seen served at parties around the holidays, whether it be at my in-laws' Italian Christmas or even my grandma's house. I love to serve it with some lemon wedges on the side and a nice assortment of crackers. Okay, so now last but certainly not least is this fancy Christmas tree pull-apart garlic knots. So I have 1 large pizza dough here that I rolled out into a rectangle. And to get the Christmas tree shape, we need 33 pieces of dough here. So I cut the rectangle into 7 by 5. And then I have 7 mozzarella sticks that I cut into 5 pieces. So we will have a few extra, but you can bake those off on the side. So we just want to wrap a piece of dough around each piece of cheese. And then we are going to form our Christmas tree shape here, starting with 1 on top, then 2, then 1, and then it goes down into 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. You'll see. And then once those are all formed, we just want to place them all seam side down on a parchment-lined baking sheet as we're going here. And they should be touching because that's what's going to make them pull apart when you take one. And then I have 1 egg that I whisk together, and we just want to brush that all over the top. And then I have my oven preheated to 450 degrees, and we just want to bake this for about 15 to 20 minutes. And while that's baking, we are going to make our garlic butter. So I have 1/4 cup of butter melted, and I'm going to add in 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese, a teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 tablespoon of basil, and 1 tablespoon of parsley, fresh. And we just want to whisk that together. And then while these are still warm out of the oven, you can either move them to a platter or leave them right on the baking sheet. And I like to just drizzle this butter all over the top and serve with warm marinara sauce for dipping. These are so addicting. I'm sure you can imagine if you like garlic knots or a good cheese pull, then these are definitely for you. And again, it's just so cute and festive and a great thing to serve or bring to a party. I really hope you enjoyed coming along with me and making 8 more of my holiday appetizers. They're all easy but festive and fun and absolutely delicious. They will be crowd pleasers for sure. Please leave me a comment if you give them a try. I always love hearing from you guys, and thank you so much for watching until the end. If you haven't seen part 1 of my holiday appetizers, I will have that link down below, as well as my playlist for my 12 days of Christmas cookies, which I am posting every other day for the month of December, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Bye. If you clicked on this video, you might be gearing up to host a holiday meal, and I am here to make sure that your side dishes are anything but basic. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Jess here at Cinderella's Apron. If you've never had melting potatoes that are so tender they practically dissolve, or my addictive, spicy Brussels sprouts, then you are in for a real treat. I'll also be walking you through my mama's creamy, crunchy broccoli casserole and a rich, decadent, scalloped sweet potato dish. So let's get started on the best part of the holiday plate. So let's start out with my spicy Brussels sprouts. So I have 1.5 pounds of Brussels sprouts that I cleaned and trimmed and cut in half. And we're just going to drizzle them with some olive oil and season with salt and pepper. I have my oven preheated to 400 degrees, and I'm just going to lay the Brussels sprouts on a sheet pan, and I try to place them all cut side down so they get nice and crispy. And we're just going to roast those for 20 to 25 minutes. And while those are roasting, we are going to make our spicy sauce. Sweet and spicy. So in a saucepan over medium heat, I have 2 tablespoons of butter that I melted, and to that I am adding in 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, 1 tablespoon of sriracha, a half a teaspoon of garlic powder, a half a teaspoon of ground ginger, and a teaspoon of vinegar. And we just want to simmer this for about 3 to 5 minutes or until it is slightly thickened. So then once the Brussels sprouts come out of the oven, we're just going to toss them in this sauce and get them all nicely coated. And then I like to top the Brussels sprouts with a 1/4 cup of candied or toasted pecans. It's a super simple recipe, but elevated from the typical plain roasted Brussels sprouts or Brussels sprouts with bacon. And it's not too spicy. It just gives that little bit of a kick with the really nice sweet maple syrup. So now we're going to move on and make my mom's famous broccoli casserole. So I'm just melting 2 tablespoons of butter in a saucepan over medium heat and whisking in 2 tablespoons of flour. And then we're going to whisk in 2 cups of milk and season with salt and pepper. So we just want to cook that until slightly thickened, and then we're adding in 2 cups of shredded white American cheese, or about 15 slices. And we're just going to whisk until that is all melted and thickened. And then I have 6 cups of cooked broccoli. I like to use just the steam in bag. We're just going to add that in here and give it a good mix. And then I'm just going to pour that into a small greased casserole dish. And I have 4 tablespoons of melted butter in a bowl. And I'm adding in 1 cup of breadcrumbs and some salt, as well as some pepper. And we're just going to mix that together and pour that all on top of the broccoli mixture. My oven is preheated to 350 degrees, and we're just going to bake this for about 20 to 25 minutes or until it is nice and bubbling and the top is golden brown. This is one of those dishes that my mom makes that we all request at every birthday, every gathering, every family event. It's just so rich and creamy and a great way to get picky eaters to eat broccoli because we all ate it growing up. Okay, so now let's try my mom's broccoli casserole. It is famous for a reason. Definitely do not pass this one up. So now we're moving on and starting these gorgeous melting potatoes. So I have 1.5 pounds of gold potatoes, and I'm just slicing those into about 1 inch thick, so really big, thick pieces of potato. So I have 4 tablespoons of butter melted, and to that I am just adding in some fresh thyme and salt and pepper. And we are just going to toss the potatoes in this butter mixture. And then I have a sheet pan lined with foil, and we're just going to arrange the potatoes on there, all cut side down. So then we just want to roast the potatoes at 500 degrees for 30 minutes, flipping halfway through. So then we're going to flip the potatoes again, and I have 1 cup of chicken broth, and I'm adding in 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, as well as some fresh parsley and minced garlic cloves. And we're just going to pour that into the pan and roast an additional 10 minutes. And then I like to move them to a casserole dish just for better presentation and to keep them warm. These seriously melt in your mouth. The name is no joke. It almost looks like a scallop. Let's see if I can, just completely. Easily one of my favorite ways to make potatoes. So last but certainly not least, we are moving on to my scalloped sweet potatoes. So I have 5 medium sweet potatoes that I peeled, and I'm cutting into 1/8 inch medallions. You can absolutely use a mandolin if you have one. And then we just want to stack them up and arrange them in a 9-inch baking dish. And in a bowl, I have a 1/4 cup of butter that I'm combining with a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, a 1/2 cup of water, a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, a teaspoon of ground cloves, a teaspoon of ground nutmeg, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And I just microwaved this to melt the butter and warm everything together. And then we're just going to brush 3/4 of this mixture all over the potatoes, and even you can dump it on there, honestly. And then we just want to cover it with foil. My oven is preheated to 400 degrees, and we're going to bake this for about 45 to 50 minutes. Then we're going to remove the baking dish from the oven and take the foil off, brush on the remaining sauce, and then sprinkle with some chopped pecans and mini marshmallows. And then we're just going to pop that under the broiler for a few minutes just to toast the marshmallows. I just love this twist on a sweet potato casserole. I feel like we only make that for Thanksgiving, so this is a unique way to make it for a different holiday, especially for us at Christmas time. I will absolutely be making this. I really hope you guys enjoyed coming along and making these 4 holiday side dish upgrades with me. These are absolutely some of our favorites, huge crowd pleasers, and they're different, but not so different that people will be thrown off or not enjoy them. So if you give any of them a try, definitely leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought of the recipe. If you enjoyed watching this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up as it really helps my channel. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching until the end, and happy holidays, everybody. Hey everyone, we all know the biggest stress on Thanksgiving isn't the turkey, it's the oven space. If you're tired of playing oven Tetris and shuffling pans around all morning, you've come to the right place. If you're new here, hi, I'm Jess here at Cinderella's Apron, and today I will be showing you 4 incredible foolproof side dishes that cook right in your slow cooker. That way we can free up some oven space and keep our side dishes warm all day. It's also a great way to bring a side dish to a Thanksgiving that you were invited to without having the host warm it up for you. So let's go get started. Okay, so we're going to start out with our slow cooker stuffing. This is my traditional stuffing recipe. I just figured out how to cook it in the crock pot. And it still gets those super crispy edges. Ugh. So anyway, I've got a 1/2 cup of butter that I'm melting in my skillet, and I'm adding in 1 cup of onion finely diced and a 1/2 cup of celery finely diced. And we just want to cook this for about 5 minutes or until the vegetables are tender. And then I'm just adding in about 2 to 3 tablespoons of fresh herbs. I like to use sage, rosemary, and thyme. And we just want to turn off the heat and let this cool slightly. So in a large bowl, I have 6 cups of dried bread cubes, and to that I am adding in 2 1/4 cups of chicken stock, 1 egg, and then we're going to season that with salt and pepper and add in our butter and vegetable mixture. And then just give that a good mix until everything is nicely incorporated. So I lightly greased my crock pot just so that the stuffing doesn't stick. And we're just going to add that in a nice even layer. And then to really achieve those crispy edges, I cook it on high for 30 minutes. And then you turn it down to low and cook it for about 4 to 6 hours, stirring about every hour or so. And that way the stuffing gets evenly cooked and crispy and not just like mushy in the center and crispy on the outside. It tastes just like it came out of the oven. And I am really picky about my stuffing. I don't like my stuffing to be very wet. So the fact that it works in the crock pot is just incredible. So now moving on to the sweet potato casserole. I'm melting a 1/4 cup of butter in a small saucepan and adding in a 1/2 cup of brown sugar, a 1/4 cup of maple syrup, a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a pinch of nutmeg. And we just want to cook this for a couple of minutes or until the sugar is dissolved and the butter is all melted. Then we're just going to turn off the heat and add in 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And what makes these probably the best sweet potatoes I've ever had is that the raw potatoes cook in this mixture. So instead of boiling and mashing the potatoes and mixing this stuff in, oh my good gracious, they became candied. They're so good. So I've got about 2.5 pounds of sweet potatoes that I peeled and diced into 1/2-inch cubes. And we're just going to stir that all around. And again, my crock pot is greased because this is going to get sticky and we don't want everything to get all stuck. So we're just going to add in that mixture and we're going to cook it on low for 6 to 8 hours or on high for 4 to 5 hours. Again, stirring about every hour just so nothing gets stuck. Now, you can absolutely leave the potatoes cubed, but I preferred to mash them. So I'm just mashing those up. And then I'm going to add my marshmallows on top and just cover it and let those melt for a few minutes. You could also add some pecans on top. Really add your little flair here. Now, of course, because these aren't in the oven, the marshmallows don't really get browned. So if you have a little like brulee torch, you could absolutely do that. But honestly, they're so good. It doesn't matter if the marshmallows are browned or not. And because these are super piping hot, the marshmallows just kind of keep on melting into the potatoes. So feel free to add a few extra on top when serving. Now on to our super cheesy scalloped potatoes. So I have 2 pounds of gold potatoes that I peeled and I'm just cutting into 1/8 inch thick slices. If you have a mandolin, definitely use it. Mine is packed away in storage, but if you can get them pretty close in size, then you can definitely cut it by hand. And you also can use russets, but I find that the golds hold up a little bit better in the slow cooker. So to make our cream sauce, I have 1.5 cups of heavy cream in my saucepan, and to that I am adding in 3 cloves of minced garlic, some salt and pepper, a pinch of nutmeg, and some fresh thyme. You could also use dried thyme if you don't have it. And we just want to whisk that together until it's nice and heated through, about 2 minutes. Once again, my crock pot is greased and I'm just adding in a layer of potatoes, and you just want to overlap them slightly. And then we're going to pour in about 1/4 to 1/4 of the sauce. I was able to get 4 layers out of the amount of potatoes that I had. And then we're just adding on some Gruyere cheese. More potatoes, more sauce, more Gruyere cheese. And I should also mention I seasoned my potatoes with salt while they were on the cutting board, but you can just do a little sprinkle of salt and even pepper as you're layering them in, just so that this isn't under-seasoned. The potatoes need a lot of flavor, you know. So then we're just going to cover this and cook on high heat for about 4 to 5 hours or until the potatoes are tender. You can test that by sticking a fork or a knife in them, and if the potatoes fall right off, then you're good to go. So once that time's up, this is what we're looking like, getting nice and golden brown. We're gonna add some Parmesan cheese on top and just cover it and let that cook about another 5 minutes or so. And then we wanna let the potatoes rest for about 15 minutes before we start serving so that the sauce gets really nice and thick. I also like to sprinkle a little bit more fresh thyme on top, but that is optional. Even a little nice freshly crushed black pepper. Oh my goodness, these hold up really, really well. You would think potatoes would just completely fall apart in the crock pot. They had that perfect bite to them. I mean, completely soft, don't get me wrong, but you could cut into the potato and pick it up, as you can see here, and it's still holding its shape. It tasted exactly like oven scallop potatoes. Okay, so last but not least, we're making an oldie but a goodie, my slow cooker macaroni and cheese. Yes, I have filmed this before. I decided to do it again because it was like 2 years ago and I cooked it in my Instapot slow cooker. So I wanted to show it in a regular slow cooker. We make this all the time, so just a reshare. So in my greased crock pot, I am combining 2.5 cups of milk, a 12-ounce can of evaporated milk, 1 teaspoon of yellow mustard, some garlic powder, paprika, salt and pepper, as well as 4 cups of shredded cheese. I like to do a mixture of 3 cups of cheddar and 1 cup of American, and then 1 pound of elbow pasta uncooked goes right in there. And you just want to pat it down and get as much of it covered as possible. And then you add on a 1/4 cup of cubed butter all over the top. So then you just want to cook it on low for 1 hour and check it. In my Instapot slow cooker, this cooks in like literally an hour and 15 minutes. The regular crock pot takes closer to 2 hours. So I would say just check it every like 15 minutes or so after that hour is up. It will still be a little soupy until you let it set, but once the pasta's cooked, turn it off. I'm jazzing it up a little bit with some toasted breadcrumbs. For the holidays, it was a last minute decision. I didn't film it, I'm so sorry. I just melted about 2 or 3 tablespoons of butter in a skillet with some, like about a cup of breadcrumbs, a little bit of garlic powder, salt, pepper, and parsley, and just toasted it, watching it, swirling it around until the breadcrumbs got nice and golden brown. This macaroni and cheese is magical. As I said, we honestly have this at least a couple times a month. It's just so quick and easy. And while for us macaroni and cheese isn't normally a traditional Thanksgiving side, I know a lot of people do it, so I wanted to reshare. I really hope you enjoyed coming along and making these 4 slow cooker side dishes with me. These are not only perfect for the holidays, but really any time of year. It's just so great to have something that you can set on your counter, set it and forget it, and save yourself some oven space. I really hope these help you out during the holiday months. I know I will be making probably all of them again throughout the next month or so. If you give any of the recipes a try or just want to say hi, definitely leave me a comment down below. I love hearing from you guys. Be sure to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already for more easy, fun, family-friendly recipes. All of the recipes are printable on my website at cinderellasapron.com. I'll link it down below. Thank you so much for watching until the end. Happy holidays, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye. Hey everyone, today we are making my classic crispy eggplant rollatini. Crispy fried eggplant filled with creamy, cheesy ricotta mixture and placed on a bed of classic marinara sauce. topped with some more sauce and cheese and sprinkled with parsley. This is a wonderful dish for the holidays, especially for a vegetarian option, and something that we made all the time in catering around the holidays. It also has those beautiful Christmas colors of red and green that make it feel a little festive, so let's go get started. So we are going to start out by frying the eggplant. So I have 2 eggplants that I am going to peel and then cut into 1/8-inch thick slices. You can absolutely use a mandolin for this, but I'm just kind of eyeballing it by hand here with a nice sharp knife. And then we want to lay these flat and sprinkle them with salt to get rid of some of the excess moisture. So we just want to let them sit for about 15 minutes. And then we are going to pat them dry. And then I have my dredging station here. I have 1½ cups of flour on a plate and 4 large eggs in a bowl, as well as 3 cups of breadcrumbs. I have Italian seasoned here, but you could use plain and add in your own herbs. I'm also adding in 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder and 1 teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, and we just want to give that a quick stir. So then we are going to dip our eggplant slices in flour, eggs, and then breadcrumbs and set them aside on a plate. And then I have my oil in my skillet heated to 350 degrees. We just want to fry the eggplant for about 2 to 3 minutes per side until they're nice and golden brown and crispy. And then I'm just moving them to a wire rack that I have on my baking sheet so that they can kind of drain a little bit. So now we're going to make the filling for the rollatini. So I have 1 pound of ricotta cheese, and to that I am adding in 1/2 pound of shredded mozzarella, 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/4 cup of minced fresh parsley, 1 egg, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And we just want to give that a good mix. And you want this to be really, really thick. So now to assemble, I have my casserole dish here that I greased, and I placed about 2 cups of marinara sauce in the bottom. It should be about 1/4 of an inch high, so it depends on the size of your casserole dish. And I'm just going to place about 2 to 3 tablespoons of the mixture in the center of each slice of eggplant, roll it up and put them seam side down. And then you just want to spoon a little bit of sauce onto the top of each one. You want to keep these crispy, so you just want to have a little bit there for color and flavor, as well as about 1/2 cup of shredded mozzarella cheese and 2 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese. And then I have my oven preheated to 375 degrees, and we're going to bake this for about 20 to 25 minutes or until everything is nice and melted and golden. Filling should be bubbling. Now you can make this a day ahead of time and pop it in the refrigerator. You will want to bake it for an additional 10 minutes if you are baking it cold. And then when it's done, I like to sprinkle some more fresh parsley or basil on top to add that pop of color. I really hope you enjoyed coming along and making eggplant rollatini with me. As I said, it is a wonderful dish for a holiday, but really any time of year. It's a special dinner. It does take a little bit more work, but as I said, you can make it ahead of time. You can even make the eggplant slices way ahead of time and freeze them so that when you're ready to make this dish, it's really easy to assemble. It was something that was always requested, especially around the holidays when I was in catering, because everyone always wants to have a vegetarian option other than just pasta at these parties. And it's just so special. It feels so indulgent with that super crispy eggplant and creamy filling. It is definitely well worth the work. If you give this dish a try, please be sure to leave me a comment and let me know what you think. And thank you so much for watching until the end. Happy holidays, and we will see you in the next one. Bye. Hey everyone! The holidays are all about making memories, not constantly stirring pots and checking the oven. If you're tired of missing out on the fun, this video is for you. Today we're taking the stress out of hosting with 3 incredible hands-off slow cooker recipes: a tender, festive cranberry pot roast, a sweet and savory brown sugar ham, and a dreamy, crowd-pleasing lasagna. Let's get these meals cooking so you can actually spend this special time with the people who matter most. So we're going to start out by making a cranberry pot roast. So I have a 3-pound piece of chuck roast here. This step is optional, but especially for the holidays, I like to take just this extra little step of searing the meat, and that just really helps lock in flavor, and it's super easy to do. So I just have a stock pot over medium-high heat with some olive oil, and I patted it dry and seasoned it with salt and pepper. And we're just going to sear it on all sides for just a couple of minutes. You'll know it's ready when it releases from the pan, and it will be nice and golden brown. So then I just placed that in my crock pot, and I have a 14-ounce can of cranberry sauce. And to that, I am going to add in 1 envelope of dry onion soup mix. So you're going to get a lot of that sweet, savory, tangy kind of thing going on. It's so good. So once that's mixed together, we are just going to place that all over the top of the beef. And then I have 4 tablespoons of butter that I'm just going to place all around and on top of the beef, as well as 1 cup of fresh cranberries. So then we just want to cook this on low for 6 to 8 hours. You can cook it on high for about 4 hours, but I find low is the best bet if you want really, really tender, fall apart pot roast. This beef is just absolutely incredible. So tender, it just falls apart, melts in your mouth. I love the flavor combination. It's just got that little extra something that just screams holiday with the cranberry sauce. And because of the pectin that is in cranberries, it almost makes a gravy by itself. As you can see, it's just the sauce is coating it so beautifully. You could absolutely take a gravy fat separator and take some of the drippings and make some extra gravy on the stove with a couple tablespoons of butter and flour mixed together to make a roux, and then you just add that in and cook until thickened. And we like to serve it on top of a bed of creamy mashed potatoes. So now we're going to make a slow cooker brown sugar ham. So I have a 5.5-pound bone-in spiral sliced ham. You don't want to get anything much bigger than that, or it might not fit in your crock pot. But to that, I am adding 1 cup of orange juice to the bottom. And then I have a mixture of a 1/2 cup of honey and a 1/4 cup of butter melted together. We're just going to pour that all on top of the ham. And we're going to cover it and cook on low for 3 to 4 hours, basting about every 45 minutes to an hour, just so that the ham doesn't dry out. It is, of course, already cooked, so you really are just heating it up and you don't want to dry it out. So in the last 30 minutes or so, we're going to make the glaze. So I have 1 cup of brown sugar, and I'm adding that to a 1/2 cup of the liquid from the crock pot, along with some garlic powder, salt, cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, and black pepper. And we just want to whisk that to combine. And we just want to simmer that for a couple of minutes or until it is nice and thickened. So now to get this ham really caramelized, I'm just moving it over to a sheet pan lined with foil, and I'm going to baste on half of the glaze. We're going to pop it under the broiler just for a couple of minutes or until it starts to get nice and golden brown and sticky. And then I like to just move it back to the empty crock pot, so I take all the liquid out and brush the remaining glaze all over. And then that way you can put the lid back on and just turn it on to keep warm if you're not ready to eat yet. And it just keeps it ready to go whenever it's dinner time. I love this hack for cooking a ham because it honestly tastes exactly like if you baked a ham, but again, you can free up that oven space. You can just set it and forget it and kind of enjoy your holiday. And to me, that is the most important thing. So next up, we are going to make my slow cooker lasagna. I love a good lasagna on Christmas Eve, but it's also great for Christmas Day. So in my nonstick skillet over medium heat, I have 1 pound of ground beef and 1/2 cup of finely diced onion. And we're just going to cook that all together until the beef is browned and the onions are softened. And then I just always like to drain my beef so it's not too fatty. Then I'm just seasoning with some garlic and Italian seasoning, as well as salt. And we're just going to pour in a 24-ounce jar of marinara sauce. And I always like to put some water, about 1/4 cup, into the jar, shake it around, and pour that in. And we just want to let that simmer for about 5 to 10 minutes on the stove, just to let all of those flavors come together. And of course, feel free to make your favorite meat sauce. I'm just trying to make it as easy as possible since we are doing a slow cooker dinner. So then in a bowl, I am combining 15 ounces of ricotta cheese with some shredded Parmesan cheese, about 1/2 cup, and 1 large egg, along with some salt, pepper, and dried basil. So to assemble, I'm just putting about 1 cup of the meat sauce in the bottom, and I have these no-boil noodles, and I'm just breaking them up to fit into a nice even layer. And then we're spreading on 1/3 of the ricotta mixture, and I have sliced mozzarella cheese. I really prefer using that for my lasagna. I find it melts better in just a nice even layer where everything's coated. You get really good cheese pull that way. And then we're just repeating the layers with meat sauce, noodles, ricotta, and mozzarella cheese. I ended up getting 4 layers out of this. So depending on the size of your crock pot, it's probably 3 to 4 layers. And then I just like to finish off the top with some more grated Parmesan cheese. So then we just want to cover it and cook on low for 4 hours or until the noodles are tender. You can use a little paring knife to check that. And then I like to sprinkle on some fresh basil. Look how gorgeous that is. I am a fan of the edges of the lasagna where you get that really crispy cheese, just like I'm an edge brownie fan. So if you are too, you're going to love this because there are so many crispy, crunchy edges. And of course, I like to let it sit for about 10 minutes before slicing into it, but this is what you have, a beautiful homemade lasagna. But again, you can set it and forget it and just enjoy your holiday. And there you have it. I really hope you enjoyed coming along and making these 3 slow cooker holiday dinners with me. Now that I have a 3-year-old who gets really excited about holidays and events, I find that I just want to spend time watching him open his presents and enjoying things and not being stuck in the kitchen the whole time. So if that sounds like you just want to spend time with your family, you don't have to skimp on flavor or quality of a beautiful holiday meal. I am here to tell you you can have the best of both worlds, so I really hope that these recipes are helpful for you. If you give any of the recipes a try or just want to say hi, leave me a comment down below. I love hearing from you guys. Definitely give the video a like if you enjoyed it. It really helps out my channel. Subscribe if you haven't already. And the recipes are all listed on my website, cinderellasapron.com. Thank you so much for watching until the end. Happy holidays, everybody.